The deep web is one of the most intriguing places on the internet, not because it brings joy to people, but because it offers an unfiltered, unrestricted look into humanity. It allows individuals to express themselves freely, do as they please, and access things that are hidden from the surface web. I had always been fascinated by it, and at the time of the events in this story, I was in college. Many students on my campus were getting into exploring the deep web. It had become somewhat of a trend. With so many people accessing it regularly, it seemed safe enough for me to try. I had heard numerous horror stories, tales of hacking, stumbling onto disturbing sites, and even people tracking down users' addresses. Those stories had always kept me away, but with everyone around me using it so casually, I decided to give it a shot. I asked a friend, Nate, to help me set it up. When he arrived, we opened my laptop and began configuring the necessary programs. He asked if I planned on doing anything illegal, to which I firmly said no. He then assured me that we wouldn't need to install Tails, a software used for extra security when engaging in illicit activities. After a short while, everything was set up. I had a new IP address, and Nate gave me a rundown on what to do and what to avoid. He emphasized that when using the hidden wiki, I should keep it on censored mode to minimize the risk of encountering something I didn't want to see. For about 2 weeks, I navigated the deep web with confidence. I visited various sites, spoke with interesting people, made a few online friends, and even bought some weed. Feeling overconfident, I decided to dig deeper. I turned off the censored mode on the hidden wiki and began clicking on random links. It took a while, as many of the links led to dead pages, but eventually I stumbled upon a site called All the Gore. It was a large chat room filled with different topics. I had always had a strong stomach. I had seen violent movies and disturbing content before, so I wasn't initially fazed. However, as I scrolled through, I realized how truly twisted this site was. The chat rooms were filled with actual killers bragging about their crime. Users could even post pictures of their actions. One user, who went by the name Cultist45, had the spotlight in one of the chat rooms. He detailed how he had broken into a home, kidnapped a little girl, and slaughtered her parents by slashing their throats while hiding under their bed. Then, he described how he took the child back to his house, tortured her, and eventually killed her. At first, I thought he was bluffing, but then he started posting pictures. What I saw made me sick to my stomach. Close-up images of the poor girl, beaten, bloodied, and crying. More images followed, her tied to a chair, her face contorted in agony, her body covered in wounds. The worst image showed Cultist45 holding a drill to her skull, looking directly at the camera with pure joy. I had seen enough. Disgusted, I typed in the chat, "You people are sick. You deserve to die. How do you even sleep at night?" Immediately, the chat erupted with laughter and insults. Users mocked me, calling me weak and naive. Some said I was just as helpless as the girl in the pictures. Then, Cultist45 himself responded, "Really? Where do you live, buddy? I'm sure everyone here would love to see you featured on this site." That's when I made the biggest mistake of my life. I typed, "I'm calling the police," and having this site shut down. Less than a minute later, my screen went black. Then, a new chat box appeared in green. A user named Admin1 typed, "Call the cops, and you will regret it." I was in my junior year of college when I had my first terrifying experience with the deep web. At first, I was fascinated by it. The idea of a completely uncensored corner of the internet where you could explore anything intrigued me. Many people at my school had been getting into it, and with so many using it, I assumed it was safe. I had always heard horror stories, hacking, disturbing content, and even people tracking down your address. But after seeing my peers browsing it regularly, I decided to give it a try. A friend of mine, Eric, came over to help me set everything up. He showed me how to use a secure browser and explained the basics. When he asked if I planned on doing anything illegal, I quickly said no. He assured me that since I wasn't, I didn't need additional security measures like Tails, a program designed for extra anonymity. After setting up a new IP address and learning the do's and don'ts, Eric made it clear to keep the hidden wiki on censored mode, to avoid stumbling onto things I wouldn't want to see. For 2 weeks, I used the deep web cautiously. I explored different forums, chatted with people, and even bought some harmless items. Eventually, I got overconfident. Feeling like an expert, I turned off the censored mode and started clicking on links at random. Many were dead ends, but after some time, I landed on a site called All the Gore. It was a massive chat room with various discussion topics. I had seen violent content before in movies and on regular websites, so I thought I could handle it. However, as I read through the chats, I realized this wasn't just some edgy forum. This was a gathering place for actual criminals. People bragged about their crimes, and photos were being posted. One user named Cultist45 was the center of attention. He was describing in vivid detail how he had broken into a family's home, murdered the parents while hiding under their bed, and kidnapped their daughter. He claimed to have tortured her, and as if to prove his story, he started posting pictures. The images were beyond anything I had ever seen. Gruesome close-ups of a terrified young girl tied to a chair, bleeding, crying, vomiting. Then came the worst one, a picture of Cultist45, grinning with joy as he drilled into her skull. I couldn't take it anymore. Disgusted, I typed into the chat, "You people are sick. You deserve to die. How can you live with yourselves?" Immediately, users started mocking me. They called me weak, an empath, and said I didn't belong there. Then Cultist45 typed, "Really? Where do you live, buddy? Everyone here would love to see you on this site." I panicked and made the worst mistake of my life. I typed, "I'm calling the police and shutting this site down." Within seconds, my screen went black. A new chat window opened with bright green text. Someone named Admin1 typed, "Call the cops. And you will regret it." I reached for my phone, but before I could dial, I got a text message. The sender had no number. It simply said, "Call the police, and you're dead." I turned back to my laptop and saw my webcam light switch on. On my screen, I saw a live image of myself staring at my phone. My heart nearly stopped. Then, another message appeared. "Put the phone down and uncover your webcam." I hesitated but didn't comply. The admin responded immediately, posting my full name, age, and home address in the chat room. "Would be a shame if you and your college buddies went missing, wouldn't it?" he typed. Terrified, I followed his instructions to permanently block access to the site. When I finished, another text appeared on my phone. "Now, don't ever come back." Just like before, there was no number attached. I called the police from my friend's phone, but they couldn't trace the site. I changed my address and personal information, but I still had nightmares about it. A few days later, the horror escalated. I was staying with my friend David when I received another text from an unknown sender. "Check your computer." I opened my laptop, only to find that I had lost control of the mouse. Someone had remote access. I watched in horror as they began downloading unknown software. My phone buzzed again. "Look out your window." I turned to the window next to me and saw a man leaning against a white van in the parking lot. He held a phone in his hand and, when he saw me looking, he nodded. Another text followed. "Activate the program now." David called the police immediately. As we waited, another text arrived. "I'm coming in if you don't do it right now." 5 minutes later, we heard the doorknob turning, followed by loud banging. We backed away, gripping a baseball bat, expecting the worst. But just as suddenly as it started, the noise stopped. Peeking outside, the van and the man were gone. A final message appeared on my phone. "We will be back." When the police arrived, they examined the door. Someone had carved my name into it. They searched my laptop and found it had been completely compromised. The officer wiped it clean, but he warned me that I had been deeply targeted. The nightmare didn't end there. The next day, while alone in my room, I heard a rattling noise from my closet. I ignored it at first, thinking it was nothing. But then, the closet door slowly creaked open. A masked man stepped out. I ran for the door, slamming it behind me, and fled the apartment. By the time the police arrived, he was gone. Strangely, nothing was taken and nothing was damaged. That night, with officers monitoring the building, I opened my new laptop and saw my wallpaper had changed. Instead of trees, it was a disturbing image of a man in a mask, the same mask I had seen in my closet. The police worked tirelessly on the case, and a month later, 4 men were arrested, including Cultist 45 and Admin 1. The horrifying site was shut down, and I was finally free. But what still haunts me is the fact that there were countless others watching that live stream, cheering them on. People just like them are still out there, waiting for their next victim. The banging on the door grew more violent, each thud making my heart pound harder. I took a deep breath and glanced out the window again. Sure enough, the man in the van had disappeared, but the pounding on the door didn't stop. Instead, it escalated into a horrible scratching sound, like nails dragging across wood. It lasted for several more minutes before we heard slow, deliberate footsteps retreating down the hallway, and eventually fading away. Moments later, my phone buzzed with a new text message. "We will be back." My stomach dropped. When the cops arrived, they instructed me to check my door. I stepped out into the hallway and gasped. My name had been engraved into the wood. The police launched an investigation, checking the entire building, and a tech officer was brought in to examine my laptop. He ran deep scans, uncovering traces of suspicious software, and told me my computer had been severely compromised. The core files had been corrupted beyond repair. We had no choice but to wipe the system completely. He also checked my phone, but just like before, there was no traceable number for the messages. "We'll keep officers nearby in case this happens again," he assured me. The next day, exhausted and emotionally drained, I returned home from school. David wasn't back yet, so I went straight to my room and collapsed onto my bed. Just as I was about to drift off, a faint rattling sound came from my closet. I lifted my head slightly, listening, but when the noise didn't repeat, I dismissed it as my tired imagination and shut my eyes again. A few minutes later, the closet door swung open with a forceful creak. My body jolted upright, and there he was. A man in a mask, stepping toward me. I bolted for the door, barely registering the adrenaline coursing through me. I slammed the door shut behind me and sprinted into the parking lot. My hands fumbled with my car keys, my breath ragged and uneven. The moment I managed to start the car, I sped away as fast as I could. By the time the police arrived, the intruder was gone. Surprisingly, my apartment hadn't been trashed. Nothing seemed to have been stolen or even moved. It was as if he had just been waiting, watching. That night, 2 officers were stationed outside my building, monitoring everyone coming in and out, hoping to catch the masked man if he returned. I tried to calm myself by opening my laptop, but the moment the screen lit up, a chill shot through me. My wallpaper had changed. It was now an eerie image of a masked man, the same one who had been in my closet. He was holding a knife, pressing it into the eyes of a baby in what looked like a dimly lit cabin. My stomach twisted in horror. All of my applications and programs were gone. The only thing left was the same suspicious software from before, sitting ominously in the middle of my screen. Against my better judgment, I clicked on it. Instantly, the entire screen was taken over by a live stream. I couldn't exit. The video feed was from a boy's bedroom. He looked about 13 or 14, sitting at his desk, completely unaware of the camera watching him. Then, a small chat box appeared in the lower right corner, and a message popped up. "Welcome to our live stream. We are glad everyone could be here. Thank you, Daniel, for joining us." My blood ran cold. My name was Daniel. They had waited for me to start watching. I stared at the screen, paralyzed, as the closet door behind the boy slowly creaked open. A man stepped out, holding a toolbox. He quietly set it down, then pulled out a roll of duct tape. Before the boy could react, the man grabbed him from behind and taped his mouth shut. The terror on the kid's face was palpable. His eyes wide, pleading, his muffled screams barely audible. He was home alone. I frantically tried to exit the program, but nothing worked. The cursor was frozen. Then, the man reached into his toolbox and pulled out a screwdriver. He pressed it against the boy's chest and drove it in. Blood seeped through his shirt as a horrible wheezing sound escaped his taped mouth. Tears streamed down his face as the man twisted the screwdriver deeper before yanking it out. The boy's body convulsed in agony. The man wasn't done. He picked up a hammer and began smashing the boy's hands, turning them into a mangled, bloody mess. My hands shook as I slammed every key on my keyboard, desperately trying to shut it down. But nothing worked. The chat box continued to fill with messages from anonymous viewers, cheering the man on, suggesting what he should do next. Then, he took out an electrical saw. The boy's screams of pain cut through me as the blade tore into his eye socket. Blood splattered onto the camera lens. I turned away, feeling bile rise in my throat, but I couldn't stop watching. With horrifying precision, the man used a screwdriver to gouge out the boy's remaining eye. Then, he lifted a large knife and slowly slit the boy's throat. The body fell limp. I vomited onto the floor. When I looked back at the screen, the chat box was still active. Messages flooded in. "That was incredible. Best one yet. Do another soon." Then a final message appeared from someone named 045. "Thanks for watching, Daniel." The program abruptly shut down, leaving me staring at my twisted reflection on the black screen. My breath came in short, ragged gasps. I hadn't even noticed my phone vibrating until that moment. When I picked it up, I saw multiple notifications. Messages from friends, family, even my mom. "What the hell is wrong with you? How could you send something so disgusting? I never want to speak to you again." Horror crashed over me. The monsters behind that stream had sent it to everyone I knew, making it look like it came from me. Minutes later, the police arrived. I stammered through my story, showing them everything. It took weeks of investigation, but eventually they tracked down 4 men responsible for the site. Among them were 045 and Admin 1. Their operation was shut down. But what haunted me the most wasn't them. It was the thousands of people who had watched, the ones who had encouraged it. They were still out there. If you ever think about exploring the deep web, be careful, be smart, because monsters aren't just in the stories. They're real, and they're watching. Blood splattered across the screen as the man pressed the saw into the boy's face, his screams echoing in my ears. I felt tears streaming down my face, powerless to stop it. Then, the man took a screwdriver, gouged out the kid's eyes, and with a large knife, slit his throat before tossing his body to the floor like discarded trash. I gagged, bile rising in my throat, and vomited all over the floor. When I looked back at the screen, the chat box was filled with sickening messages. People laughing, cheering, typing horrific things like, "That was amazing, and do it again!" My eyes landed on a message from a user named Reaper47. "Thanks for watching, Daniel." My stomach dropped. They knew my name. As if on cue, the program closed, leaving behind a grotesque wallpaper of a masked man. My entire body trembled as I tried to process what had just happened. Then my phone buzzed repeatedly. I picked it up and felt my world shatter. My friends, my family, every contact I had received that live stream, sent from my account. Horrified messages filled my inbox. How could you do this? What the hell is wrong with you? The police have been called. I felt nauseous. Those monsters had destroyed my life in minutes. When the authorities arrived, I explained everything. They took my laptop and phone, launching a full investigation. A month later, they tracked down and arrested 4 men. Reaper 47 was among them, along with the site's admin and 2 others. The website was taken down, and I was issued a new laptop and phone. The nightmare, it seemed, was finally over. I wish I could say I kept receiving cryptic messages or hearing strange noises in the night. Some horror cliché. But the truth is, I never heard from them again. The men were locked up, maybe even dead. But what truly haunted me wasn't them. It was the others. The hundreds, maybe thousands of people who had watched that live stream for pleasure. The ones who were still out there, waiting for the next victim. If you ever venture onto the deep web, be careful. You never know who or what